give us some tips for writing young adult fantasy, because it's morphed into romantasy. You've got some very spicy young adult fantasy. You've got some non-spicy young adult fantasy. Wow, I have not been drinking yet.
And we'll edit that out.
Yeah.
Leave it in.
Or not. Yeah. But anyway, give us some tips for that.
I think that just knowing where you want to fit in, because obviously the genre, like you just said, is it's always been a big genre.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known That podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
Samantha Cummings.
We do it. It's a fun interview.
Yes. Yeah. We talked to Samantha about, she co-hosts a podcast with Matilda Swift, and we talked to Matilda back in 2024. Right. And we talked about a lot more than just the podcast. We talked about her approach to like NaNoWrMo and just marketing, community. We talked a lot about community, how she has a Discord and Masterminds and things like that. It was really fun.
It was fun. It was a good interview. And she has a lovely accent. So
yes, she does.
I'll enjoy that. So tell me what's been going on with you.
Well, we're recording this early because we have the Houston weather issues again. So hopefully everything will be fine. But I have gotten back into writing this last week, and it's felt really good. I'm working on a set of letters, and that's like a smaller task and easier to complete. So I'm so happy about that. And I've been doing some more interviews for the K-drama podcast, and that's been so much fun. And I think it has 3 episodes out now, and it's, just chugging along like one download a day, which is fine. That's what happens when you have a new podcast. So yeah. So that is about it. Yeah, that's it for me. What about you?
Well, I've been writing, and slowly, but I'm writing, and it is a muscle when you don't use it. It's very hard. I went to my daughter's and helped her last week because she had the flu and another infection, 2 different infections. She has 5 kids, and her husband was out of town. So she didn't even ask. I just got in the car and went.
Because she probably needed a lot of help.
Yeah, it was bad. But I still got stuff done while I was there. Yeah, so that's been going pretty well for me. I've had some ideas, which, I was an idea wasteland for quite a while. So that's
good.
Exciting.
That's a good sign.
I am talking to my mom and sisters about us doing like a short-term podcast. Sister and my nephew and just our family and just sort of how we have navigated through that. Everybody's on board. Well, one sister says she has a weird voice, but if I can do this.
But everybody has a weird voice. We all think our voices are strange.
Exactly. So I think what we would do is just record it kind of all at once. Go to a hotel for the weekend. Do it all at once and then put it out in 6 episodes or something. Like that. So we're still working on kind of logistics of it and stuff. But I want to do something like that. You've inspired me to do a second podcast, but nothing ongoing or long-term right now.
But that's a great way to talk about what's happened and share what's happened, because y'all have handled it really well. I mean, I know it's been just awful, but you have come through it, and you've handled it as well as can be, I guess.
As well as can be, but mostly, I really feel like it would help people. I think it's really helpful to know that you're not alone and that you're going through something somebody else has gone through or is going through. But on a selfish note, it'd be good for us too. So, if nobody listens to it, nobody listens to it. I mean,
but people will. People will find it. Yeah. And whoever is meant to find it will find it,
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking at. But right now I'm just trying to get a book written. So
totally get that. Yep. Yeah. I've decided I'm going to do the letters first, get that done, then get back into writing. And I was also going to mention this. Remember I told you I offloaded a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning of the year. And one of those was my email inbox. And email filters are magic, which I did not realize this. And I got most of them set up, and it's not as much of a pain as it was before, but still Adriel is helping me do like the stuff that needs to be replied to. Yeah. So that is going well. Yay for getting rid of stuff that doesn't have to be done by me.
Exactly.
It's hard to let go, but it's good when you do. So
it is.
All right.
Get on with the interview because it's great.
Yes, here is Samantha.
All right.
Well, today we are really excited to have Samantha Cummings with us. Hi, Samantha. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
We are wonderful. Thank you for being here.
I'm very excited.
Well, let me read your bio. Samantha Cummings writes YA fantasy chock full of myth, magic, and monsters. And she's also the co-host of the Pen to Paycheck podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's correct.
That's really good. Well, tell us how you got into writing.
I feel like I came into writing quite late in life, although not really when you look at it. I wasn't one of those kids that wrote like as a child. I really struggled in school, and I think that I've definitely got ADHD and dyslexia, even though I've never officially tested for it. I think had they tested, maybe school would have been better, but as it went, it wasn't great. So I only came into writing in my early to mid 20s because I decided to do a degree. Well, we have this thing called Open University, which is where you can do a university degree, but from home. So I was working full time and doing a degree on the side for fun. That's the ADHD thing. They should have known. So yeah, I was doing this degree, and at first I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was just doing kind of an arts and humanities thing. And one of the modules that I was doing was creative writing. And it kind of made sense. So I started doing this creative writing module, and all of a sudden the world opened up, and I realized, because I've always been a reader, I've been like the freaky kid at school who's just constantly got a nose in a book. My whole family used to think I was like a weird little child for always just reading. So yeah, it kind of all started to make sense. I started writing, and then I discovered NaNoWrMo. And that really is what changed my life. This fun game that people play where you try and write a novel in a month or 50,000 words. And I found it crazily very easy. And loved it. And I've done it every year since. There's been a little bit of drama and like bad stuff going on behind the scenes with NaNoWrMo for the past couple of years. So I haven't been doing it officially, but I have written 50,000 words every year in November for about 12 years now, 12, 13 years. And yeah, that changed my life. So that's how I got into it. It was really just stumbling into writing through a university degree. And then, then playing a game of writing a novel.
That's amazing.
And look at me now.
I love that. I've seen a t-shirt that says officially undiagnosed, but something's not right. That's yeah.
Yes, that's my whole thing.
But that is a great story. I love that.
And I love that approach to NaNoWrMo, that it's a game, that you're just going to try it and see how it goes. And it sounds like it would take the pressure off a little bit, because some of us are so serious. So that sounds like a good way to do it. Well, we like to ask everybody, what is your definition of success?
I know you like to ask everyone this. And for weeks and weeks, I've been thinking, what's like a great answer that's so, just sounds so good. But I'm just going to say the first thing, money is my first idea of success. I wish it wasn't, but I work full time and effectively write full time as well. But I would love to make enough money to not have to have another job, or at least like not another full-time job. So I think that is, as crass as it sounds to say, money. It makes the world go round.
Yeah, I don't think it's crass.
Get it. No. I think it's honest, and that was one of my motivators too. So I'm right there with you.
Certainly mine too.
And it's also like what money affords you. So it's not just like replacing a wage. I'd love to be able to pick the kind of house that I live in and the place that I live. It's just like those little small things that the level of comfort that money affords you. I think that's what I'm really looking for. It's that feeling of not worrying so much about stuff. Yeah, I'm going to stick with money.
Yeah. Good one. Good one. Well, what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft when you started? Which is interesting because you were taking a writing class when you started.
I was,
so, yeah.
I think that the thing that I wish I had known about writing or craft is that time is the greatest teacher. I'm so impatient in life, but I really I'm starting to get a lot better as I get older of trying to practice on my patience. So I know that as time goes on, I will get better at writing. It will feel easier. The processes will smooth out a little bit. I also kind of wish I'd known a bit sooner that writing is a business and not, or it can be a hobby, but the way that I wanted it to be was definitely not a hobby, but I was treating it as such. So I think that approaching my craft as a business would have made me maybe look into sharpening my tools, not just learning how to write better, like taking courses, but even just doing the mindset stuff a bit earlier on, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. Yeah, I wish I'd looked at it more like that. But at the same time, I also loved the fact that I approached it as more of a game. So I can't really begrudge myself too much.
Right. I didn't approach it as a game, but it was like, can I do this? So I guess it was a game, but it was a game with myself. Can I do this?
It's a game. Yeah, that's exactly
Can
it. It's
I really do this?
A game with myself.
Yeah.
Like, well, should I write these things down that I'm thinking?
Well, what about marketing? What do you wish you'd known about that?
I wish that I had known about newsletter marketing a lot sooner. I definitely leaned more into social media because as a millennial, social media has been shoved down my throat. So it feels like it's running through my veins a lot of the time, and as much as I don't want it to be. But I wish that I'd understood more about email marketing and how good a mailing list or a newsletter can work for you. And it's only since doing podcast, me and Matilda, and doing our mastermind group, that she really taught me and told me so much about about emails and things like book funnel that I just had no idea about because I've been doing it on my own for so long. Yeah, like emails are a big deal and they can take a lot of pressure off you. Yeah, I think that's basically it. It's just emails are the one thing that I wish I'd understood more, but I'm getting into it slowly. I'm trying my very best.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Have you shifted some of your time away from social media to newsletter, or do you do both kind of equal?
I do both equal. I have been a bit hit or miss with my emails, my newsletter. I love writing emails because I kind of treat it like a blog, even though I'm sure people wish I didn't. I used to blog when I was in my early 20s. I did used to blog. I always kind of block that from my mind, but I blogged a lot as a youth. And yeah, so I've always enjoyed writing things like newsletters. So I'm trying to be more consistent with it and do it. I really like doing them every week, but I do sometimes forget or I feel like I have nothing to say. So that's something that I'm working on, is trying to come up with a great long list of topics that I can cover and things that are interesting, because I don't just want to be selling all the time. I think that's
correct. Yeah.
That's the horrible balance, is trying to figure out how much do you sell versus how much do you just like entertain in some other way. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, and challenging.
It can, but I think you also bring up a good point, which is community, because had you not connected with Matilda, you might not have realized. And how did you and Matilda connect?
She tells a different story to me.
Well, let's hear your side.
Her story is completely 100% correct. However, I do remember more of it. So we do have a friend in common. I used to be best friends with somebody, and we went to primary school together, which is school when we were like between 5 and 11. And we lived down the road from each other. So instant best friends if you live on the same street. Best friends. And I'm still friends with her. And Matilda became friends with her in high school. So we kind of had this one person that we gravitated around, but we never really crossed paths until we did like occasionally. So we did know each other a little bit, but it was only when we bumped into each other on social media, bumped into each other in inverted quotes. Yeah, on Twitter, I think it was. We kind of fell into the same circle and began tweeting or retweeting each other. And she reached out during lockdown to see if I wanted to start a critique group because we kind of knew each other and all that stuff. But there is more to the story. We did know each other earlier than she really remembers, because I remember meeting her when I was 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old. Yeah. And I don't think she doesn't remember. And I've told her this, and she kind of brushes it off. But we definitely met. I used to know somebody who lived on her street where she was growing up, and we crossed paths many times, but I think she just likes to block that out. So it's been like a strange, very long relationship, and it's just culminated in this amazing thing within the last 2 years, basically.
I love that. That is just amazing. That's amazing. Well, what assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
At the start, I hate to admit this, but at the start, I thought that self-publishing was a failure route.
Yeah.
Very
and
common.
So it's I think back then, because I had started self-publishing in 2016, so back then it wasn't the thing it is now. It was a completely different beast. And I started self-publishing, and I did it under a pen name, which is the pen name that I'm still using, but I'm segueing into my actual name, because I had this thing in my mind that I didn't want to use my real name to self-publish, because I wanted my real name to be used for traditional publishing.
Oh, yeah.
And I, just lived that dream like everybody does. And it was the wrong mindset. It was completely incorrect to say that self-publishing was an easy way out, because we all know is the hardest thing that you could ever do.
Right.
Yeah, and I love it, and I'm so glad that I realized that, and I decided to give up on trying to get a trad publishing deal, because it's just not. I don't think it would be for me. It always kind of scared me in the back of my mind to think that I might. I was scared to get an agent, so I think the universe probably realized that I shouldn't have an agent if I was scared to have one, and what that would entail, which was working with people and having demands made from me by other people. I like to demand things from myself. That's the only person that I want to either do well for or do terrible for. Just me, myself, and I. I don't need a company, like a big business, to be looking at me and hounding me for words and manuscripts to be finished on time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
And that is an interesting way to look at it, is you're setting your goals and your plans instead of being sort of beholden to an organization that, they may love you, but you're one of many, many, many authors. But then the flip side of that is,
I know
you're the only one doing everything. So,
I know. Yeah. And it's just the money up front versus the money that might take years to come. Although saying that, we all know that the money doesn't always appear up front for trads anymore. So
no, not at all.
No, it's not. Things have changed a lot. Well, what's the most important lesson you've learned, do you think?
There are so many. I've made myself some notes, because I always have to make notes before I do anything. And this is my biggest list of bullet points. Probably the top one is that even though I can do it alone, I would rather not. So I can do all the writing and editing alone, and I love that. I love sitting in a room on my own, or going to a coffee shop on my own. And, playing the author is one of my favorite things to play. So glamorous. I love it. But I can't exist in a bubble. And the thing that's really what I've learned from doing the podcast is that it's so much easier when you have a community, even just like one person in a mastermind. It's changed my life 100%. I don't think I would be anywhere near where I am now if we hadn't started that. And I think I think everybody who is scared to put themselves out there to meet other writers, I think that you need to do that as soon as you can because you'll never learn
100%.
anything.
100%.
You learn so much from other people. Just ways of thinking that you just never think particular things. Me and Matilda, I think we complement each other so well because we have such similar personalities, but we're at completely opposite spectrums of them. And so we really both bring things to the table and she brings ideas to me, and I'm sure I bring ideas to her that we just would never have had on our own. So yeah, I think that community is key to having a great career, or just feeling less alone in this career. I think also one of the important lessons that I have learned is that I have got value. This is a whole mindset thing. I'm sure everyone can agree to this. It's just feeling like you're faking it. It's the whole imposter syndrome.
Sure.
I've been working a lot on mindset this year or last year, because it's now 2025. I don't know where time goes. I think me and Matilda had a big conversation about this. I can't remember if we recorded it in one of the podcasts or whether we just had this behind the scenes conversation. But I started to realize that I thought that I wasn't as good as she was, or just as good as other people who write in my genre. And it was holding me back in some ways because I just thought, like, who am I I really wanted to start a community effectively. I wanted to find a place where I could talk to other young adult writers. And I was looking for other people to have created that space because I thought that I should join from a joiner's point of view. And after we did a lot of work on this and we had a big conversation, I realized that I actually have a lot to offer other people. I've been doing this a long time. I'm almost 40 years old. I like to think of myself as a child, but I'm not. And so I stepped into my almost 40-year-old mindset, and I started up a Discord for indie young adult writers, and I put on the big boots and decided to just run the Discord myself rather than trying to join someone else's. And that's been a really nice experience to feel like I'm bringing something to the table rather than feeling like an amateur, when I'm not an amateur, a self-published author who's running a business.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that mindset.
Sometimes it's hard to, it's basically being honest with yourself and saying, you do have experience, you do have this knowledge, and stepping up to create something for other people to share. That's great. It's been a really nice... I can understand how it's a big step though, too.
Yeah. The good thing is that the people that have joined the Discord have taken it upon themselves they don't wait for me to instigate anything. There's a lot of conversation that just happens without me. I'm just there to facilitate and to make sure that everyone's happy. And it's been a very, very positive experience. And yeah, I love it. I feel like a proud mother.
That's great. Yeah, that's such a good feeling too. Yeah,
birthed the Discord.
I have birthed the Discord. Yeah, I recommend everyone try it once. It's a lot cheaper than birthing a child.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a pretty big change in your thinking. Is there anything else? Because our question is, what's the biggest change you've had to make in your thinking? Do you have anything else where you had to flip your thinking?
I think, like I mentioned before, it's the whole business thing, looking at it as a business, which affords you the separation of not feeling so emotionally tied to some decisions that you have to make. So looking at this as a business, I've got a board in front of me which has Post-its all over it because, got to have Post-its everywhere. And one of my Post-its is bright yellow and it says, "This is a business, not a hobby." And I look at that every single day because beforehand I was just not putting the time in, or wasn't giving myself permission to be professional or to feel professional. I just had this huge blocker up. And once I decided to run it like a business, it felt like an easier burden to bear. There's still all of the things to do. There's still all the marketing to do, and the writing and the editing and the planning and the timing, and all of the stuff still there. But I, being a quote unquote boss babe, and I'm running a business that feels nicer to me than struggling as a writer.
Yeah.
That's the big mindset shift for me.
Yeah. And like you said, once you realize or once you decide I'm running this as a business, it does make certain decisions easier because I get all wrapped up in feelings sometimes about like, well, I have to do this series or I have to do this next book because the readers want it. But if you can look at it and go, but that's not really where the income is coming from, or, you know, if it's your satisfaction, that's different. But yeah, it does help even in decision making sometimes too.
Yeah, I did that the start of 2024. I already had, because I kind of jumped around different genres and started different series when I was just flailing around as a baby author. And so at the start of 2024, and I was talking to Matilda about this, I had some series that were already ongoing, but they didn't fit with the brand that I wanted to proceed with. So my whole young adult Magic Myths and Monsters, which I was really keen on being my full thing. These other books didn't fit into it, and they're not finished series. And I had told myself that I needed to finish them no matter what, because you feel like you've started something, you don't want to leave those things behind. And after a stern conversation, I realized that I just need to cut them off. And it feels awful to do it because I can still see them on my Amazon dashboard, like these or orphaned children that I've left on there. But they're not what I want my story to be. They're not fitting in with what I see my life being like. So yeah, I had to make that decision as well. I had to decide to pick the me that I wanted to be versus the me that I thought I was supposed to be.
That's really healthy. So healthy and so hard to do and very hard to do.
It helps to have somebody who's a lot more stern and just somebody else to tell you, basically.
Right.
That's the great thing about the mastermind is somebody else gets to say, you're being dumb. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier about like you would have started the newsletter sooner and focused on it more. If you were starting over, would you do anything differently? Is there anything else?
Yes, maybe. I don't really like to think that I've done anything wrong because my timeline has been perfect for me, even though it's taken a long time to get here. It's difficult to say that I've taken any wrong paths, but I do really like what I've started doing recently, which is what I would have liked to have done sooner, is before I start writing a book, looking at the genre expectations, looking at the market expectations. Looking at it as a product beforehand and thinking, right, this is the product that I want to create. What do people expect from that? Not just what do I want to put into it, but what do other people want? Because you have to have the two-way street of like you're going to make something, but you can't just make it for yourself. Even though I desperately want to just make things for myself, that's not good business sense.
No, that's not good business.
I've learned it. So writing to market, finding where you feel comfortable working for your own passion projects, but also taking into account writing to market, because that is a decision that everyone has to make. And I do wish I'd made that sooner. But again, I don't think I would be here if I had done that sooner. So I can't begrudge past Sam for any decisions that she's made. She was living her best life. She was doing everything she knew.
Yeah. Well, give us some tips for writing young adult fantasy, because it's kind of a lot of it's morphed into romantasy. You've got some very spicy young adult fantasy. You've got some non-spicy young adult fantasy. Wow, I have not been drinking yet. And
we'll edit that out.
Yeah.
Leave it in.
Or not. Yeah. But anyway, give us some tips for that.
I think that just knowing where you want to fit in, because obviously the genre, like you just said, is it's always been a big genre. It's definitely
very broad. Just very broad.
Yeah. And the trends do change quite not. I don't think they change quickly, but they do change dramatically. So as we know from 10 years ago, where young adult was all about contemporary young adult teenagers romance, very kind of vanilla. I don't want to say vanilla, but a little bit more vanilla than it is now.
Than it is now, right?
Yeah. It's crazy now. I think just knowing where you want to sit within the market is the best place to start. So I know where I want to sit. It's finding space at the table, or finding the table, really.
Finding the table.
It's finding the table.
Yeah.
I know that there are people sat at a table and I'm like walking through the cafeteria looking for the table and where to sit. Yeah, I think just knowing what your full vision is. So for the longest time I just had like flailing arms, kicking legs as I was doing my things. I was just very all over the place. And it's only been the last year that I have distilled my brand and my position within the market. And I still have got a lot of work to do to get my foot in the door. I feel like I'm obviously still a very small time author, but because I know where I want to be. So it's just elbowing. It takes a while. It's some people have instant success with writing things, but that's just timing. I don't think you can really cheat the system. I think you just have to have faith in what you're writing. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to give any advice, really. Just knowing clearly what you want to write, because like you say, there's so many genres or so many subgenres within it now. A lot of romantasy stuff going on, a lot of dragons. I'm not a dragon person, so I am waiting for the dragon season to end, and I'm waiting for werewolves, witches, and vampires to come back. And I think that I feel like it's on the way. And I'm going to catch that next wave.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and this is not just for young adult fantasy; it's for any genre. Knowing what you're like, knowing where your lines are. Like, there are some people that can write fast enough and write well enough to jump into those trends. But knowing where your lines are, if you're not one of those people, and just staying true to that, you're right. Eventually, the wave will come back.
It's time spent within anything. It makes it a lot easier. So I think that I just want to tell anybody listening who feels like they don't think that they're succeeding. I honestly 100% believe it's just time. Just keeping your head down, staying in the game. Eventually, success comes knocking. That's that's my hopes and dreams.
Exactly.
There's a lot to be said for persistence.
Oh yeah, and I'm as persistent as anybody. Once I've got something in my mind, I'm just going to go for it. So nothing will stop me.
That's amazing. I remember Stephanie Meyer's, after the last Twilight came out, the last one, someone asking her about why it didn't have more, sex in it or whatever. And she just said, at the time, I didn't know she was a very religious person. I think she's Mormon.
Yeah.
But I just remember her saying, I wrote what I was comfortable writing. And that has really always stuck with me, because if you don't write what you're absolutely comfortable writing, it will be inauthentic, and people will see that. And so knowing where those lines are, knowing that if you just hang in there long enough, the wave will come back, all of those things. I think that's really important.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the podcast earlier. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the podcast itself, the Pen to Paycheck podcast. We had Matilda on. And so if people are interested, they can go back and listen to that episode. But in case they haven't heard it, tell us who it's for and kind of what y'all talk about.
Okay. So it's for any writer, indie or not really. We try and stay as broad as possible. But it's about our personal experiences. So we just wanted to... But the way it came about was very us. we had decided to start a mastermind. So I'll start there. We decided to start a mastermind, and So our first meeting together where we met in person or just face to face, we already knew each other, but so we met face to face for a meeting, and we had this grand plan to help each other out, come up with better ways to do things and better our business and our writing, and just work together to try and tackle the beast of publishing. And in that first meeting, she said that she would love to do a podcast, to which I replied, me too. And thus the podcast was born.
Yeah, that's me and Sarah. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
I think we started recording within 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
That's not me and Sarah. Yeah, no.
Ours was like 2 years.
At least. Yeah.
Ours was, I want to say, like, I'm really bad with remembering specifics, but I'm pretty sure it was a couple of weeks. We already had the microphones because we just both bought them separately, randomly years ago for different things. And Matilda is so good at researching. So she went away, researched hosting, just all the stuff that you would need to know about how to start a podcast. And then she sent it to me, and then I just got, dragged along, which is that's exactly what I need in life. So yeah, she sorted it all out. We started recording. It's about our struggles and our wins in self-publishing. And we try and talk about everything. Nothing's off the table. So we will openly talk about money. We talk about mindset a lot. We talk about literally everything that we go through, from it can just be like a week's task, or we will set each other challenges if we think that we're struggling. So in the earlier episodes, we would do things like come up with branding ideas that we could share with each other and then talk about the results. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of everything as we're progressing into, we've just finished our first year, and this weekend, which in a couple of days, we're meeting up and we're going to start our second year, and we're recording the first episode together. And yeah, it's very exciting. It really is what I think is a very fun and playful way to look at something that a lot of people find it very stressful. And we tried to bring a little bit of humor and a little bit of fun and enjoyment, and hopefully we encourage people to not find it too stressful and to find other people to work with. Yeah. It's just the best part of my week every week.
Great.
I love it. I really do. It's changed my life.
That's great. And it also kind of opens up some, not taboo, but subjects that are kind of kept in the dark a little bit, I think, money and how we struggle, and if we
mindset.
Mindset, and how we come out of those struggles, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's definitely been a huge mindset year for both of us, and we've talked openly about how we've struggled with like the way we look at ourselves, how we look at our work. We also share things like other podcasts that we listen to or books that we read. So we love sharing resources that we have found helped us throughout the weeks. And we'll often come back to the same topics multiple times, particularly money and mindset, because it's never just a one stop and it's done. It's a continuous cycle.
It is.
We're going into the second year and hoping for some good results and some big changes. So we'll be announcing those very soon.
That's awesome. How do you think it's impacted your writing?
It's professionalized my writing for sure. It's made everything just seem a little bit more streamlined. And I think that's because I've seen the way that Matilda works and how she writes. And she's definitely shared a lot of her just crazy mindset. It's not in a bad way. I mean, she's very on the ball. She's very dedicated and, hits her word counts. And I'm just more of a free spirit and I just float around. And now that I've seen how she does it, it's changed the way that I've done it. I've set up tracking spreadsheets and I've got things stuck on the wall all around me. Yeah, that's been very helpful. I don't know how much I helped her with anything. I think I just bring the laughs and a bit more like fun and spontaneity. Yeah, she's definitely taught me how to be more of an adult. We're literally like, she's in a couple of months even older than me. We're the same age, but I feel like she's like a big sister.
That's amazing.
She'll hate me saying that.
I love that.
Sorry.
I love it, though. I love it.
Sounds like a good working relationship.
It does. It does.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like for us, it sounds like Jamie's more like you in our relationship because she brings the fun all the time, which we need. I need.
It
So I
Sarah
think
shows
that's
me how to be a
important.
grown up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
And I'm a lot older than her. So yeah.
You got to have the free spirit, don't you? You got to have the free spirit and the
Yes,
hard
you
work.
do.
That's
Because
the
sometimes
perfect mix.
you can be too serious and too.
But you also have to have the anchor, or you be
That's true. Or you'd be adrift.
You'd be free spirited
100%.
all over the place. Yeah. Like a balloon let loose. Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel a lot in my life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's the string to my balloon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success?
I have kept writing even when I felt like I didn't want to, or I wasn't sure whether I should. I think NaNoWrMo probably helped me a lot with that. It set me up with a good schedule.
Yeah.
So much so that I have got a list of books, mostly they've been written, that I can release over the next 3 years. Like I'm crazy ahead of myself.
Oh, wow. That's
so
amazing.
I have about 3 years worth of book plans. And I think that's just come from consistently sitting down to write a book, even if I wasn't sure. And that's not the way that everybody does it. I know that some people write a book and then their whole process is write the book, edit the book, publish the book. I have never been like that. I'm a little bit more like that now, but I have just written the books that have come to me as they've appeared. So yeah, I've got a lot of books on the back burner because I just sat down and wrote when I wanted to. And I think that that's served me very well. I think that working with Matilda and doing the podcast has been the best thing really for me overall because of accountability. We all love that word. I love having the accountability. I love being accountable to myself, but I love somebody else to tell me that I've done a good job.
Yeah.
I love external praise. And I feel like I get that more now that I've got more people involved. I've got more of a community.
Yeah.
Even just having like a cover designer, an editor, a formatter, having a whole team, it feels more like it's got more weight to it. It's more important. That feels like the recipe for success for me rather than just being a one-man band. Yeah, doing the whole business thing.
Your arms get real tired when you're the one-man band.
Yes. But you do get big muscles. And
I
feel like I have got some strengths from it, but it's nice to share the load.
Exactly. Well, very good. Well, it's been great having you here with us, and this has been so fun. Tell everyone where they can find out more about you, more about the podcast, your books, all that.
You can find the podcast at Pen to Paycheck Authors on Instagram. Links are all there. We're also on all the podcast platforms. If you give it a search, you can find me on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at NaNoWrMo, which is SAMMO. WRI. I can't spell it out.
You did great.
I'm on Instagram mostly. I'm all over social media as the millennial.
And what about your Discord? Is that something that's open, or is that a community?
It's a closed community, but I'm more than happy for people to, if they wanted to join, if they specifically write young adult, and it's indie publishing that they're doing. So it's young adult fantasy is what we're trying to keep it as. But it's loosely young adult fantasy. They can DM me on Instagram. Okay. And I can send links. So if anybody's interested, that would be lovely because it's a great little group. And we're really having a good time.
Great. Well, thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me. This has been very fun.
It's been wonderful. Thanks for listening today. And if anyone wants to support the podcast, you can go to wishidknownforwriters.com/support. And then you can also find the show notes at that same link, wishidknownforwriters.com. So thanks for being here, and we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.